Hi, class. I'm going to go over some statistics that I've come across, and this is drawn upon the organization. It's actually the National Center for Charitable Statistics, and it's compiled by the Urban League, which is a very well-respected think tank and advocacy organization that deals primarily with, as the name implies, urban-centered issues and policies at the national level. So what they've done in their National Center for Charitable Statistics is compile information, and of course this is tricky stuff because nonprofit organizations have such a wide range of duties and missions and types. And what they've done is they've actually drawn upon the one possible common denominator for such statistics, which are public record, and this comes from the IRS. And these are the Form 900s that have to be filed for charitable organizations and nonprofit organizations generally. So drawing upon those filings, which are skewed, they're very conservative because it turns out that organizations with less than $5,000 in receipts on an annual basis don't have to file at all. Some do, but they don't have to. And these include such organizations as PTAs and theater groups and very, very small scale outfits like that, little sports organizations and such. But you are also, by the way, religious organizations are also not required to file, although 275,000 of them do. And in part, this is sort of to cover themselves because religious organizations do get into areas of activities that are not necessarily purely religious in nature, in case you haven't noticed. So this way they are covered under the law. But not all of them. So as I said, the numbers that we get are conservative. There probably are more nonprofit organizations out there that are not reporting through the 900 form. So let's get down to it. According to the latest figures, which are circa 2012, there are 1.4 million nonprofit organizations in the United States. So again, those are the ones that have filed. And again, it's a mixed bag. Where I really wanted to go with this was trying to get an idea of viability. That is, what is the survival rate, shall we call it, of nonprofit organizations over time? We do know, for example, and this comes as a surprise to a lot of people, that in the private sector, 10% of businesses fail every year. Okay? So how do nonprofit organizations fare in relation to that? Well, it turns out they fare fairly well. Although we don't get, again, it's an indirect measure, you have to look at those organizations that are no longer filing their 900 form. And the way the IRS does this is that they'll send a postcard out basically saying, are you still out there? Are you still viable? And they may or may not be getting responses because if an organization shuts down, they may not even get their mail anymore. But between 2000 and 2005, they did come up with a statistic showing about 16.5% of nonprofit organizations fail over that 5-year period. Well, if you average that out over an annual period, that comes to 3.2%. So that tells me that nonprofit organizations are fairly viable, certainly relative to private sector businesses. And, I think bodes well for the idea that you can start up a nonprofit organization and have the thing launched. Now, as I said, we have to be a little bit careful about how do we extrapolate that information because certainly the very small outfits are not reporting and they can come and go and shut down and even resurrect over time, and that would be under the radar. But based upon the best available statistics we have from a national source, we have a 3.2% failure rate among nonprofit organizations. And again, that's roughly 1/3 the failure rate of the private sector. So I thought I would put that out there for those of you who might be interested in either devoting yourself into a career of nonprofit management or perhaps starting up your own. There are ways that you can do this. I've already provided you with a list of very important kind of key nonprofit organization websites and philanthropic organization websites. And I'll augment this with that address for the National Center for Charitable Statistics. Again, so that you can get just that much more information about the requirements and how they've compiled these statistics. It's a rich database. They do breakdowns both nationally and by individual states. So again, I think that's useful if you're doing some front-end analysis to get an idea of what's going on out there. They also can break down by type. They also break down by the largest organizations, and they break those down by type as well. So it's a very rich source of information if you really want a good profile of nonprofit organizations in the United States. And in fact, they even give you some insights into international organizations as well. So I suggest you check that link and familiarize yourself with the overall picture and profile of the nonprofit world. Okay, that's it for now. We look forward to wrapping things up here soon. We'll be and I'll be checking into your presentations. By the way, this is another possibility for a presentation, is to look at this site and put together your own narrative about what you found on it. Okay, there you go.